Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Allcott channel. Look, it's Andy Brassel. We're about to have lunch, it's going to be delicious.
It is going to be delicious.
But more importantly, we want to talk about this for a second, and then I want to talk to you about Ronaldo, about some of the surprise packages. Do you know what, I was just looking for his book. So guys, you need to buy your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother, who likes football, an amazing book. Honestly, I just had a little look at it. Football Murals, Celebration of Soccer's Greatest Street Art. And this one's signed by Andy Brassel. Not all are, but honestly, let me just show you one. That's literally any page. It's all really gorgeous, and it gets you in the feels when it comes to just iconic players, which I think I might ask you about that as well. So Liverpool fans, you'll have seen a few murals. There's a lot of Diego Maradona, there's Ranieri, there's so many. Go and get yourself this book, Football Murals by Andy Brassel. All good bookstores, that one?
Yeah,
some rubbish ones as well.
Yeah,
that's nice. Tell me about the book, first of all. How did it come about, and how was it enjoyable? I presume it was.
It was. Someone approached me with the idea and said, we think you're a person to write this because you have probably seen a lot of these murals at first hand, and I had.
Right.
And I had some pictures of them on my camera phone which weren't being good enough to make the edit, so they professional people.
Standards,
yeah,
that's good.
Exactly. So yeah, that was good. I just like it so much, like the idea of football murals, because as fans, we all like to mark a sense of place. It's all about place and ritual, football, isn't it? Because I mean, the players are interesting as well, and their personalities. And like when I was writing it, because there are words as well, the thing that I loved about writing it is when you write the bits on individual players. Think of, say, Maradona is probably the most mural player in there.
Yes.
As example, the whole, I think the Guardian referred to it in the wake of his death.
Let me just show you this one.
Maradona Land.
Yes.
In
there's one out here. So there's a Maradona mural.
He travels well.
He does travel.
Yeah, and I just like it's interesting writing about like footballers we know really intimately in terms of their game, but from a different perspective. Like if you were like sort of challenged to write about Maradona, Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, Totti, Pele, and you've got to write about them in a slightly different way, it's quite nice to look at another aspect of that. So like with Pele, we looked at his vulnerability, which is something that he's never comfortable with admitting. So it was like a different angle of someone we know so well as a footballer. So as well as doing like wider themes and the themes we get, as you said how it gets you in the field. I think that's the important thing. Like these pieces, they sort of transcend language, and like even if it's like of celebrating a different club or a different player to what you support, it's like you're feeling, I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
It's gorgeous, and like, that's the colour and the vibrancy of it all as well. It does really just hit you a lot of the time. So guys, go and check it out. Let's talk about everything else, because obviously we're here. You're here often talking about European football. So I wanted to kind of pick your brains on some of that. One, we'll talk about Ronaldo, because I'm intrigued to know what the perspective is from the Portuguese press. And also England as well. I asked people on Twitter, like, what would you like to ask Andy? And a few people going, what do other countries think of England? But with this in mind, one question that did pop into my head was, at these World Cups, there are these like iconic players that reveal themselves. Often names that you don't really know, like James Rodriguez in 2014, for example. Yeah. Are there any players that you've seen in this first set of group games, or you're still expecting to kind of arrive? And which players do you think this World Cup will kind of revolve around and will be the sort of main characters of it?
Well, I'm currently staying in a hotel with a lot of very tense Germans after their defeat against Japan. I was saying something just before. Like, if you can imagine England had lost that first game against Iran, we all know.
Yeah.
Imagine what the fallout would have been
like.
Well,
we just drew a football match, and the fallout's been outrageous.
Exactly, and like what Germany are experiencing as well, and knowing that I spoke to Ilkay Gündoğan after that first game, the second game's a final already, and it is, and so like they have to go hard or go home against Spain in the desert on Sunday night, and you think about that, and like. It almost feels as if they're really up against it, because they can play well and still lose Germany, which I think is the issue for them. They played quite well for a lot of that Japan game.
Yeah.
And they got it really badly wrong defensively. A little bit in parallel with what they did in England in those two Nations League games. They had 20 minutes where they completely torpedoed themselves, really. So there needs to be a hero that reveals himself. I think that hero is probably Youssoufa Moukoko, who celebrated his 18th birthday while he was out here. But he's been such a prodigious talent for so long. I know a lot of you guys will have heard of him. He was playing for the under-16s when he was 12. You know, he's incredibly advanced, and now his body has caught up with his talent, which is why he's been so good for Dortmund this season. He's stolen the place of Anthony Modeste in the team, a striker who's twice his age, and you know, he looks the part. And what I love about him, and what I think you guys will love about him when you see more of him, is he's just shot. Whether it's on the right or the left, he just wants to have a go all the time. He's a good header of the ball for someone who's under 6 foot. And Kai Havertz is not in a great place at the moment. I think Germany do need to go hard for this, and I think he could be the hero.
Because I think the critique to Hansi Flick is that it's defensively, it's all, you know, it's so all out. It's that high line, and there's been a lot of talk about Mats Hummels not being kind of taken as well.
Yeah.
And those two centre backs are kind of in trouble. It'd be interesting to see in terms of styles of games. You won't have that same counter attack from Spain. Wanted to talk to you about Spain because with England there was sort of people went calm down now after this USA game. Obviously beating Costa Rica the way that they did. In terms of the players that they have, players that could arrive, but also Spain as a country, I don't think many people were talking about them. Do you think that is the true Spain, or do you think they will also sort of calm down a little?
I think there will be a slight levelling off because Costa Rica weren't good. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And even Keylor Navas, their outstanding player, didn't have his greatest game on the night.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with Spain has always been is like pretty football, but where's the efficiency in front of goal? But you think they had under 10 shots and scored 7 goals. I mean, you can't argue with that, really, can you? But I think you saw that they use the subs very well.
Yeah, but they're also running hot then, aren't they? I guess that. So do you think the truth remains in terms of the concern about getting those goals?
Maybe. I mean, I think there's a question whether their best team does have Asensio at centre forward. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think it's Alvaro Morata,
who
obviously came on and did something. We saw, talking of young players who could show themselves in this World Cup. I think Nico Williams is a superstar as well for Athletic. Of course, extraordinarily, he could play his brother in Yaki if they were to match up with Ghana at any point. But in terms of needing to be that little bit more direct, Morata helps because he's a target, and Nico Williams stretches the game and is such a direct runner. And that's what's so good about Luis Enrique's teams compared to other Spanish teams. And sometimes you think of sterile possession. Even when they won the World Cup in 2010, possession wasn't particularly offensive. It was like a measure of control, a measure of containment. Whereas Luis Enrique is more aggressive than that. He's very front foot. He's very blunt when the media speak to him, and the way he wants to play football is like let's just be a bit more direct. That's what he did at Barcelona as well. And I feel that they can do that. And if I had to pick for the tournament 4 teams that are going to win it, they definitely do.
Really, that's interesting. So who do you think will be, coming back to these sort of iconic players, who do you think will be the star? Like, you know, we've got the Neymars, the Messis, the Ronaldos, all those players. Do you think it will be one of those guys who at the end of it all, it will be known as their World Cup?
You know, if I had to pick for Brazil at the moment, I think Brazil will win it, and I've always thought Brazil will win it for a while. I would have to say Vinicius, because I was at the Serbia game the other night, and I thought what was interesting about that is not obviously Neymar getting injured like seriously hampers his chances of being the player of this World Cup, because what sort of nick he'll be in when he comes back. We don't know how long it will be. Does he even come back?
Can he play 90 minutes?
Yeah, all those sort of things. But when they really started firing and just completely pushing Serbia back and playing the game in their terms in that second half, of course Richarlison caught the eye. But it was Vinicius Junior who's running it.
Yeah.
Every time he gets the ball, and he has taken such an incredible step up in the last year and a half. It's just a leap and then some.
Yeah, and what I love about watching him is the tenacity without the ball. The amount of kind of recoveries. I think that's a big thing in football now. For so long it was kind of two teams just going at each other.
Yeah.
And now it's a very important part of the defensive work is that defensive transition. And Vinicius Junior I thought was really impressive there. But also them finding him. Yeah, I think he could really. I mean, he's already right. But you're right. With Real Madrid, he's stepped up. I can't not do a video with you and not talk about Ronaldo. I've spoken a lot about him. Everyone has. What do the Portuguese press think about him? Because I think in England, a lot of people he's sort of lost them because of his behaviour, because of the interview and all those things.
I mean, people will get over that. I think in time.
Do you think?
Yeah, I really do. I think because football coverage is so all-encompassing, it feels like we're in this moment of he's tortured his legs. He hasn't. I mean, he's scored hundreds and hundreds of goals.
I don't know. I think that the feel, he's betrayed a lot of people with his inability to behave himself.
But you know what? Look at the way he got out of Manchester United the first time. He was like scratching at the door like a cat for a year.
Yeah, but he did stay for that year, didn't he? As well. I think
not by his choice.
No,
I might add.
So, but how do the Portuguese press feel about it? Because is it just more of the same? Because we know as you're a journalist, I'm talking in the media. The weird thing is, everyone can get a little bit bored about talking about Ronaldo, but at the same time, it gets
can't resist it.
Yeah, so for even the Portuguese press, are they? Is there any part of them that's like, okay, well, is this going to hurt the team? Let's keep the attention. Let's spread the attention around, or is it just like, well, look, this is the game. We have to go down Ronaldo route.
Well, I think people understand where he is, and they have for a very long time. For ages, it was Ronaldo plus 10. But you've got that in the behaviour of the players, because I've been to a load of major championships with Portugal and been very close with the team. And what I always found really peculiar in the period between, say, 2008 and 2014, even like players who grew up with him, who knew him like really well, and presumably on some sort of level with him, talked about him as if he was some sort of deity, which was really like quite unusual. But now I think Portuguese football's past that. It's been past it for a while. I think the fact they've been successful, they have, because I think the way that Portugal have set up, Fernando Santos has got a lot of critics, and quite rightly so, because the game against Ghana was in shambles, and that's a really good example of how they're kind of wasting their talent at the moment. But having said that, he set a system for Ronaldo that took into account that he was physically changing and changing as a player like quite early. So they create this system where they don't get another striker next to him in a 4-4-2, but a winger who can do a lot of running around him in Nani in 2016, and eventually that gets them to, some might say, quite fortuitous European Championship.
Yeah, I would agree with
that. But then going on from there, the whole system, like post 2014, when he goes to Brazil with his knackered knee and ankle, is based around him not having to do too much running off the ball. Now, some might say that's gone to and beyond its logical endpoint, because he does absolutely nothing off the ball now, like less than nothing, I suppose. But it's funny, like if you're talking about all the fluff around him and are the Portuguese tense about that, maybe torching their hopes, they're not. Because if you go right back to 2008, we talked about him trying to get out of United like a year before he actually did. They've been kind of firefighting since then. Every major championship, they're used to it. They know what it is. They're a small country that's had to get, a relatively small country, that's had to get used to dealing with having the biggest player in the world, maybe not the best player, but close-ish, the biggest player in the world of the last decade and a half in their midst, and dealing with all the media around that. It's a full-time job. It's really difficult. So, like this coming up again, they could have done without it. I don't have any doubt about that. But if you go back to 2014, it was a state of fitness. You go back to 2018, he knew he was going to Juventus, and the cat wasn't quite out of the bag yet.
There's always been drama.
He wouldn't speak to me, apart from me. He spoke to me. But anyway.
So my final thing with that is then, but is there an understanding amongst the Portuguese press or a possible opinion that the best Portugal with Ronaldo isn't the best Portugal full stop?
Yeah, I think they're looking beyond the point where he's playing now.
Is this the end? Is this the last one?
The last World Cup. I think it's the last World Cup. Maybe he makes it to Euro 24. I wouldn't put my last pound on it at the moment.
And do you think there's ever a moment where Portugal, as a nation, the manager, whatever, are brave enough to drop him?
I don't think this current manager is. Fernando Santos and him get on pretty well. And to have the support of Ronaldo as the Portuguese coach is imperative, or has been imperative over the last decade, to you being able to do your job. So there is a political angle to it as well. I think at the moment, I know this goes completely against the grain of the way people are discussing this at the moment. He looks cooked. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But whether we can judge whether he actually is cooked at the moment, funnily enough, he's in the same place now that Messi was last season. He is a guy in his mid to late 30s who has been the best player in the world, who didn't have a pre-season.
Right.
I don't care how good you are.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And he looks horribly out of nick. If we saw him against Ghana, I obviously watched him very close against Ghana. I was at the game. Like the first touch he had, and that whole, you know it because the whole crowd goes,
Yeah.
and he tries to control it, and it bounces off his shin. It's like, I mean, I personally, my pet hate in football is seeing professional players of a standing doing stuff that I've seen myself do when I'm playing football. And there was him, and he lunged straight into a late tackle because he was chasing his bad touch. And we saw that. But that says he's not fit. So the thing is, he's never going to get, well, obviously he's not going to get fit with Manchester United because they've been him.
Yeah.
But like, he needs to get to a point, whoever he's playing for, whether it's inside or outside Europe, play 8 to 10 games in a row, and then we'll see the maybe not peak Ronaldo, but the best that he can do at the moment. And he's not the best he can be at the moment.
Very final question on Ronaldo, and then we're going to go have lunch.
Yeah, that's important.
Will he, when it comes to him ending his career with Portugal, will he jump or will he be pushed? How do you think that ends? Because would he ever stick around to just to keep the numbers going? You know, because he does care about them.
Oh, he really cares about them. I thought it was interesting because the last interview I did with him, he did the same with the Portuguese president of the BBC when they were knocked out by Uruguay on Tuesday after the 2018 World Cup. He kind of trailed an eventual retirement because he said, "Look, I'm great. Whatever happens next, Portugal have got loads of great players. They're going to be a great team going onwards." And people are like, is he gently padding into retirement? Now, obviously, that narrative has been, or that idea has been completely flattened since then. I think it will be very, very hard for him to give up Portugal because he loves playing for Portugal so much. If you think of when is the point where you've seen Ronaldo most emotional in his career? Euro 2004, where he's like absolutely like beyond tears on the pitch at the end of that. Okay, he's a teenager then. But then Euro 2016, he never reacts like that to any of the other Champions. Yeah, any of the other Champions League trophies. Like when he's not the centrepiece there. Yeah. I suppose he is in a way because he's going crazy on the touchline, and Fernando Santos is just started back there. But in terms of actual playing, he doesn't score the winning goal. He's not on the pitch when it happens. He's not on the pitch for most of the game. But he doesn't care about that. He cares that Portugal have won. So I think it's very difficult to accept. It's really interesting to know once Fernando Santos goes, which will probably after this tournament, because I don't think they're going to go very far. Who comes in next, and are they big enough to do it?
Okay, let us know, guys. How does it end for Ronaldo? How will Portugal get on? And have you bought this book yet? If you haven't, link is in the description. Go and get it. Perfect for Christmas. Perfect for birthdays. Perfect for Tuesdays. Go and buy it.